Imperator Rome. Arguably the black sheep of modern Paradox titles, launched back in 2019 to, let's just say, mixed reception. It was so disappointing too because Imperator seemed so freaking awesome. Since CK2, which was my first meeting with the games, Paradox surprised me time and time again. Every title, from Crusader Kings to Europa Universalis 4, Hearts of Iron and Stellaris, were so deep, so fun to learn and master, and all demanded hundreds if not thousands of hours of my attention. So if you're asking me, Andy the Roman, if I was excited for a Paradox title focusing on antiquity and the Roman Republic, then the answer can only, and I mean only, be...
You're goddamn right.
But then the day finally came, and the hype was more than real. You might even say for realsies. But well, Imperator just didn't quite live up. Salve amici, meum nomen est Andros, and today we'll be reviewing Imperator Rome 2 years after release and talk about the changes that have made the game one of Paradox's finest in the making. I'd gotten used to Paradox UI systems being easy to understand and intuitive, where symbols more or less matched the menus they were hiding, where progression could be slow and fast depending on your playstyle, giving you ample time to grow your empire before seeing the endgame screen in Iron Man mode, but little in Imperator reached those heights. When it first came out, it had a UI which didn't make sense at all, and which to me was really hard to understand even though it looked more accessible. I had problems finding out which icons to click to get where, and I felt like I was always lacking in information even though it might have been somewhere. I hated the politics system, which was basically like, you really need to get one of these two parties in power, if not, the damn populace will win and your empire will fall into chaos. It just wasn't fleshed out enough, and when it came to characters, it was a mess to figure out who was who, and I felt like I was experiencing cognitive dissonance between a relatively half-baked character-focused game and a state-focused game, which was neither as good as CK2 nor as great as Europa Universalis 4. Imperator was something in between, but not as strong as either. But enough with the doom and gloom, let's skip 2 years ahead, shall we? Because as of April 2021, Imperator Rome has seen a host of absolutely free changes and major updates, which has made the game drastically better. And honestly, in terms of mechanics and cool systems in certain areas, I'd say Imperator now competes with the best of them, and sometimes even comes out on top. There are so many reasons for this, so let's begin with the one thing that made Imperator awesome in the first place: the trade system. Perhaps the coolest thing about Imperator is its focus on trade and the effects of owning resources on the various aspects of your state. Imperator's world is divided into territories, and there are literally thousands of them across the map. Each territory produces its own resource and can produce several of them depending on the amount of slaves present in the territory. Each territory is divided into provinces, and owning a resource in the province will influence that entire province, making it strategically important to own various resources in selected places depending on your goals there, be it improving the happiness of citizens or army modifiers. However, you can also own a surplus of any chosen good, so you can always stack these on top of each other if a region is in dire need of food or population growth. Most valuable, however, is having a surplus in your capital, whose effects will echo across your empire. So be careful with trading away your resources from your capital province. Each faction in the game can be traded with depending on how much they like you and your diplomatic range, which I love because, you know what, Rome didn't really trade with Egypt that much when it was in its infancy, and the diplomatic range mechanic kinda gives the game a sense of mystery, since you really feel that you've grown and expanded when you're finally able to communicate with those larger, far away, massive empires in the east. Trade then is so much more fleshed out in Imperator than in the likes of Crusader Kings and even Europa Universalis, and I really love it. Before moving forward, I thought it would be fitting to showcase perhaps the change which affects every other: the UI. Remember how I said Imperator used to look a bit not so cool? Well, with Imperator Rome 2.0, Imperator has in my opinion been giving the most beautiful user interface in any grand strategy game, perhaps ever. I love the colors, the Roman red goes well with the Babylonian blue of the minimap, and the stock white color is replaced with ones that really shine with this new look. Most of the menus have been moved from the top to the left, and their symbols have changed, drastically improving their looks and how easy they are to recognize, now actually symbolizing much more clearly whether they're about government, army, or religion management. I always had trouble finding the diplomacy tab, but now it actually makes sense that it's symbolized by a peace dove, even though most of the time you might use it to declare war. Even the event artwork is gorgeous and varied, showing how much love went into crafting this all-encompassing user interface. A big, massive congratulations to the team behind this UI revolution. It has really elevated the entire Imperator Rome experience for me. Let's now move over to the government system, which encompasses a host of aspects because of the modifiers given to politician in office. Before, the Senate consisted of 4 parties, which as mentioned earlier, just didn't work all that well. But now, we have cut the fat to 3 parties, but made them so much better. It's no longer life or death if one party is chosen over another, but rather, each party has their own priorities, what they want to accomplish while in office, and will go to various lengths to see them realized. This can be to remove a rival governor from office, invest in a certain province, or pass a law, and I think it reflects relatively well on how politics should work. Since Imperator focuses on both character and state, you cannot independently choose the makeup of the Senate, even though you may influence it through events and interactions. But you can handpick who sits where in the offices of the government, your cabinet so to speak. This brings us to the technology tree, which has become an actual tech tree. Technological progress is now no longer hampered by the size of your nation, but rather strictly by a combination of citizen happiness and productivity, the skill of your main researcher in office, and by an ahead of time penalty which restricts you from becoming overpowered at every turn. Every time you reach a new tech milestone, you reach a new level in that field, allowing you to enact laws which require a certain level in said field. You're also given a tech upgrade token, which allows you to unlock progress in any of the fields you wish, giving the player more freedom and makes the whole system all the more versatile. Again, Imperator has become so much better at letting us know how the game works by removing arbitrary mechanics for tangible concepts, putting it more in line with games like Stellaris, EU4, and Crusader Kings. It's a great rework in every way, from execution to visual clarity and player choice. Now we'll take a look at army management and warfare. Let's face it, Imperator did little if nothing to mimic the reality of warfare in the Roman era, letting us have standing armies at all times with little else to influence it. Now though, the army system has been completely reworked. Using Rome as an example, being a republic, Rome starts with no legions and no standing army. This was pretty shocking to me at first, until I found the army management menu and saw that instead of armies, I could call upon levies. A levy is a form of army which is raised during wartime, then disbanded during peacetime, made up not of professional soldiers, but citizens forced to fight for the state when called upon. This is actually how the early Roman system worked, which is awesome to see reflected in the game. At a certain point though, after reaching certain technological reforms, you are able to create a standing legion. Now, a legion, my dudes and dudettes, are standing armies made up of professional cohorts of your choosing, from light infantry to cavalry, siege experts, and of course the heavy legionary. While the levy is basically free for the state to pay for, only taking money out of the consul and governors who are forced to raise and lead them, the legions are paid for by the state on a monthly basis, so the larger the legion, the more upkeep you will have to pay. In addition, each legion is led by a legate, a general, which you can handpick, as opposed to the levy, which again is automatically controlled by the consul or the local governor. Therefore, the legions are often commanded by generals with great command skills, while the levies are at the mercy of the command skill of their citizen politicians. Furthermore, each legion accrues traditions depending on their actions, which I think is just so awesome because it makes every legion unique and gives them their own personalities, just like they had historically. In war, you now only have to conquer the major cities and forts to occupy a whole province now, finally doing away with the tedious work of micromanage occupying every individual territory. What's so awesome with legions is that they can flipping build roads across your empire. Road building done by legions.
Are you not entertained?
I don't think more needs to be said, but I will. You could build roads using your armies before as well, but now only legions are able to lay them. Because road building is expensive, you do well to have some engineers in your army, which will drastically reduce the cost of roads. Roads give several bonuses to the area they're in, like faster movement and greater access to trade, so you're well off laying them down in the long term. It also looks sweet as seeing them stretch across your empire. There's even a new map mode which gives you an overview of your great cities and how your roads connect, visualizing where you have created centers of importance. Another awesome aspect of Imperator is the diplomacy mechanic. Imperator, I think more than any other Paradox game, focuses on major nations' ability to become true hegemons. It is much more feasible for factions in Imperator to diplomatically conquer their neighbors. You see, you don't just have one type of vassal in this game. Depending on the culture and civilization level of the faction, you can have tributaries which bring gold income to the overlord, but a relationship which the tributary can cancel at any time. Tribal vassals, which again can be broken by the vassal, but provides the overlord with manpower. A satrapy or client state, which is completely under the foot of the overlord, providing the hegemon with military aid. 25% of its income can be integrated into the dominating empire, and which takes up a diplomatic slot. There are some others too, but the most important, at least for Rome, is the Feudatory Vessel, which is a client state which does not take up a diplomatic slot, only possible when the overlord and the subject state are of the same culture. Conquest is therefore far from the only possible way of establishing an ancient hegemon in Imperator, and honestly, Imperator just might be the Paradox game, or the strategy game for that matter, that does diplomatic conquest the best. I obviously love seeing the map take on my own sexy color, but just look at how great it all looks when you factor in your power as a hegemon. It's so fucking sexy, isn't it? Rome is definitely the faction I play the most in Imperator. I think Rome is, well, obviously Rome is waifu goals. It's situated smack down in the center of the world. It starts out with feudatory subjects, relatively weak immediate neighbors, a culturally homogeneous people, and ample room for growth far away from the wars of the Hellenistic successor states. But if you want something more challenging, you can always try out as the Seleucids, having to deal with extreme cultural dissonance, massive empires at your doorstep, barbarians at every corner, and, well, a fairly beautiful position in the world. Gotta say it's gorgeous over there in Babylon. Or what about Egypt? Macedon? Carthage? Or even some god-forsaking barbarian tribe in Northern Europe? This was just a taste of Imperator Rome. There's so much that can be said about the various events, stages of government, and warfare. What's still kinda lame is the fact that Imperator's game time officially ends at 27 BC, the year of the first Roman Emperor, Augustus. You can still become the Roman Empire before this, but it's a hardcore effort to even reach the historical borders of the empire, and in order to do so, it's almost a necessity to always wage war, not being able to just chill for a few years or decades and just, roam and chill. There's also some weird UI text mistakes, which should be fairly simple to fix, but which leaves an overall, come on guys type of feeling. Other than that though, Imperator Rome has come so far in these past 2 years. Whether attested to the improvements in diplomacy, army management, government, trade or user interface, Paradox crafted Imperator Rome out of stone, but has since been sculpting a marble. Imperator Rome in 2021 is not just an okay game, not just a good game, but a must-try for any fan of Paradox titles or the Roman Republican era and the wars of the Diadochi. I do hope we see Paradox continuing to update this diamond in the making in the years to come, and similarly hope the player base is elevated from what it's been. It really deserves it. And that was Imperator Rome 2 years after. Happy birthday. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.